I worked the night shift at a water treatment plant. The place was isolated, located next to a highway that connected two cities about an hour apart. Between them, there were only empty fields and a few trees. During the night shift, I was the only person on site. My job was to check the levels, adjust the vents occasionally, and ensure everything was running smoothly with no risk of explosions or serious problems. The station was surrounded by a barbed wire fence about 8 feet high, which remained locked. However, the internal doors of the facility were always left unlocked. One night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, I was at my control post, passing the time by playing a game. The sound of the game was the only thing breaking the silence, and I was almost completely disconnected from the world when I heard a voice behind me. The voice yelled at me to get on the ground. I turned around and saw a man pointing a gun at me. He must have climbed the fence because he had multiple cuts on his body, bleeding in several places. It took me a moment to process what was happening, and he shouted again for me to get down. This time, I obeyed immediately, dropping to my knees. He kept the gun pointed at me as he got closer. I remember him continuously apologizing, saying he was sorry, but that he had to do this. For a moment, I thought he had been hired to kill me. I started wondering what I could have done to deserve this. He demanded the keys to my truck, my wallet, and my phone. I didn't argue and handed everything over. Then, he tied me up using duct tape that was near my desk, securing my wrists and ankles. I had no idea if he planned to kill me or just leave me there. After a few minutes, he stepped back, apologized again, and left the room. Soon after, I heard the engine of my truck start and the sound of the tires on the gravel as he drove away. I sat there in shock, trying to calm myself down. The duct tape wasn't very tight, and after some effort, I managed to free myself. I used the station's phone to call the police. When the officers arrived, they asked me several questions, took notes on everything I could remember, and arranged for someone to take me home. The next day, I found out that the man had been arrested in a nearby town. He had escaped from a prisoner transport a few days earlier and had been on the run ever since. According to the police, he was desperate, probably out of options, and had walked to the treatment plant. That made sense, considering how remote the place was. I got all my belongings back except for the cash in my wallet. He had been caught trying to sell my items in the neighboring city. I think about that night often, and I needed therapy to cope with the trauma. The man was clearly desperate, and he might have considered killing me since it would have bought him more time to escape, as the police would have taken much longer to be alerted. I had other strange experiences while working the night shift, but that was by far the scariest of them all. I worked the night shift at a hotel for many years, especially during the peak summer season. During that time, the job was peaceful, with many families staying at the hotel and security on site. However, winter was completely different. We offered cheap weekly rates to attract retirees who wanted to spend the winter near the beach, enjoying the mild weather and escaping the intense cold of other regions. This didn't always go as planned, and the low prices often attracted undesirable people. During those months, I discovered meth labs, broke up physical fights, and dealt with dangerous situations. I remember many stories from the night shift, but one stands out because it ended badly for me. I started my shift at midnight, and my friend Marcos, who did nighttime maintenance at several hotels in our chain, would often stop by. He would pick up food for us, and we would talk to pass the time since things were usually slow. One night, shortly after ordering food, Marcos left to pick it up, and I went to the office to get some money from my wallet to give him. I heard the bell indicating a customer had entered and turned toward the lobby. That's when I saw Marcos collapse in front of me. Before I could react, a man suddenly appeared and struck me in the head with a small steel pipe. The impact knocked me to my knees. As I struggled to regain my balance, I heard his accomplice shout that Marcos had escaped and found a police officer. They fled immediately. Stumbling, I made my way to the office phone to call the police, but the phone wasn't working. Desperate and terrified, I ran to lock the front door. Not knowing where Marcos was made me even more anxious. Eventually, I managed to get the phone working and called for help, asking for immediate assistance. I only unlocked the door when I saw the flashing lights of the police car and ambulance. Later, I found out that Mark managed to jump over the counter and run outside, where he spotted a passing police officer. He stopped him and called for help. I was taken to the hospital where I needed 10 stitches on my head. At first, I thought I had only been hit once, but the security cameras told a different story. The man had struck me 10 times while I was trying to get up and grab the pipe. I don't remember any of it. The police never figured out the reason for the attack. The theory was that it was a failed robbery attempt, interrupted by Marco's escape and my resistance. Another possibility was revenge for me interfering in previous incidents, like assaults or the discovery of drug labs. After recovering, I went back to work for a while, but the trauma affected me deeply. Eventually, I quit and found another job. The attackers were never caught. I used to work the night shift at a large factory. The night crew was small, consisting of 5 security guards and 5 employees responsible for administration and packaging. As part of the administrative team, I would often sit with the security guards while they took turns patrolling the site and monitoring the cameras. The shift was usually quiet. One night, I was halfway through my shift, enjoying my dinner break. The weather was cold, so I went to my car to grab a thicker coat and took the opportunity to smoke a cigarette. I stood by the back door, where a fence stood about 10 meters from the building. The only available light was motion activated, and I had to make large gestures with my arms to keep it on. Surrounding me was only grass and shadows, and the light barely reached the fence. I was watching videos on my phone when the light went out due to inactivity. I stood in the dark for a few minutes, sipping my coffee and finishing my cigarette. When I was done, I moved my arm to activate the light and locate the ashtray. At that moment, I heard a noise coming from the fence. Small animals sometimes wandered near, but this felt different. I stood up, and the sound persisted, like the fence was being gently shaken. I looked straight ahead, but the lighting didn't reach far enough for me to see clearly. My first reaction was to say, "Hello," in a questioning tone. The sound stopped for a moment, and I tried to adjust my eyes to the darkness. When the light went out again, the shift in brightness helped me see better. The noise returned, and this time I saw movement. It looked like someone was messing with the fence. My first assumption was that a teenager was trying to pull a prank or sneak in, something that had happened before, though rarely. However, this time, it was just one person alone. Concerned, I used my radio to inform security about a visitor near the fence on the north side of the building. I knew this area was covered by cameras, so they could check quickly. The response came, "We don't see any movement by the fence. Is it near the trees?" I replied no, that someone was messing with the fence right in front of me. Before security could answer, I heard a loud noise and saw a figure running toward me. Startled, I spilled my coffee and ran inside, gripping the doorknob to keep the latch locked. The doorknob twisted violently against my hand, as if someone on the other side was trying to get in. When security arrived, the door was secure, and everything was silent. I explained what had happened, but when we reviewed the camera footage, all it showed was me standing outside. No other person was visible. I thought it might have been a prank, but no one found it funny. However, as we watched the video more closely, we saw the doorknob moving even after I had removed my hand. The fence also made a slight motion, as if something had pushed against it. There were no cuts or holes in the fence, no strange shadows, no eerie mist, yet no one could explain what had happened. Some blamed moonlight illusions or an overactive imagination fueled by too much coffee. I didn't argue, but that night, no one else used the back door. The oldest security guard, just minutes before the shift ended, commented, "I've never liked that north side. Always feels like someone's watching me." It was the most I had ever heard him say. I worked there for another 7 months without further incidents. I never went out that door again. I quit smoking and started taking my breaks inside, chatting with coworkers. I avoided any excuse to go outside. I never had another experience where I felt my imagination had betrayed me. But I still think about that doorknob. That moment convinced me I wasn't imagining things. I worked the night shift at a diner inside a 24-hour truck stop. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but it paid the bills. Most of the time, it was pretty quiet, especially after the regular truckers ate and left to rest. One of those nights, I was behind the counter cleaning up when a man walked in. He stood still for a moment, looking at the menu, and then asked if I had a sandwich for him. I thought maybe he had placed an order over the phone, so I asked for his name to check. That's when he stepped forward, and to my horror, I realized he was covered in blood. His shirt was soaked, his pants were stained, and blood was even dripping onto the floor. At first, because of the dim lighting, I didn't notice how serious the situation was. But soon, the deep red became obvious. And it wasn't just a little blood, he was completely covered. I froze for a moment, but he simply said that I didn't need to know his name. He just wanted me to make the sandwich. I tried to stay calm to avoid making him agitated, and as I prepared his order, I quickly thought of an excuse to go to the back of the store. I told him I needed to grab more lettuce since the container was almost empty. As soon as I got there, I signaled to my coworker, who was resting before her shift started, to go get the highway patrol officer who was stationed outside the truck stop. A few minutes later, I saw the officer entering the diner. I was just finishing the sandwich when he arrived. The officer immediately noticed the trail of blood on the floor and the man's eerie expression. Without hesitating, but acting calmly, he pretended he was just there to buy something. As he got closer, the man became visibly tense, as if he was about to run. That's when the officer moved quickly, grabbing him before he could escape. The man tried to resist, but the officer was quicker and managed to restrain him. After he was arrested, it was discovered that he had been stabbed, but he was in such shock that he hadn't even realized the severity of his own wounds. But even more terrifying, he had killed someone that night. His confused, oriented state made him follow his routine as if nothing had happened. He had filled up his car and gone to get a snack. He was acting like it was just another normal night, even though he was covered in blood after committing murder. It was a terrifying experience for me, dealing with something like that while working the night shift. That incident left a deep mark on me and made me realize just how unpredictable and dangerous the world can be, even in moments that seem harmless. When I was in college, I worked the night shift during summer break. I was 19 years old and an average-looking woman. I wasn't too excited about working that summer, but it was the only way to pay for school. Working at a fast food restaurant at night was, without a doubt, one of the strangest experiences of my life. I still remember my first night on the job. A woman came in and was talking to someone while waiting to order. She seemed extremely upset and was yelling at the top of her lungs. It sounded like she was directing her anger at someone in the back seat. Instinctively, I assumed she was mistreating her children, since I was a psychology student and had learned to notice these signs. To my surprise, she ordered 3 Big Macs and 3 large sodas. When she pulled up to the window to pay, I was shocked to see that she was completely alone. I was intrigued. Why would she be yelling and ordering so much food if no one else was with her? Despite her strange behavior, she was polite. She paid for her order, spoke kindly to me, and even wished me a good night. After she drove away, I noticed some coworkers laughing. Curious, I asked why. They explained that I had just met schizophrenic Maria. She was a regular customer who showed up late at night, ordering large amounts of food while yelling at imaginary people in her car. Since no one knew her real name, they gave her that nickname. Sometimes she was the only customer all night, and that made me very uncomfortable. After a week of seeing Maria every night, my curiosity grew. I needed to understand what was going on. I decided to ask her who she was talking to, pretending I thought she was talking to me so I wouldn't seem rude. On my last night of work that week, I finally gathered the courage. I waited a few seconds while she yelled at someone named Carlos, then interrupted. "Excuse me, ma'am, were you talking to me?" She simply replied, "No." Frustrated, I tried another approach. I asked if Carlos was going to order something too. She went silent. For a few seconds, which felt like an eternity, she didn't say a word. When I asked again if he was still there, she let out a scream so loud and terrifying that my ears hurt. The sound was a mix of rage and despair. No words, just a guttural scream that seemed to come from the depths of her soul. The restaurant's speaker system amplified the noise, and I was terrified. I felt guilty for provoking that reaction, but looking back, I don't think I did anything wrong. After the scream, she sped away quickly. As she passed, I caught a glimpse of her face. It looked deeply distressed. To make things even stranger, the drive-through speaker system stopped working properly for the rest of the night. That was, without a doubt, the most bizarre experience I've ever had at any job. After that, Maria never showed up again. I asked my coworkers how long she had been making those late-night visits, and they said it had been at least a year. I feel a little guilty for disturbing Maria, but I know she needed professional help. It's been a long time since I left that fast food job, and I don't plan on working in fast food again. I just hope that wherever she is, she has found the support she needed.